Commander Day stood at the observation deck of Outpost Artemis 7, watching ships come and go through the dark void of space. He had been stationed here for 3 years now, serving as Earth's diplomatic representative to this sector of the galaxy. The outpost was home to 15,000 humans, most of them families who had chosen to make their lives among the stars. Day remembered when humanity first made contact with alien life. That was 30 years ago. The Galactic Coalition had been suspicious at first. Humans had a reputation, even before meeting them. Their history was full of wars, conflicts, and violence. But humanity had promised to change. They buried their weapons, disbanded their military fleets, and opened their arms in friendship. The coalition had 47 member species. Each one followed strict rules about peace and cooperation. No weapons beyond basic defense. No military buildups. Everything resolved through talks and mediation. Humanity had followed these rules perfectly for 3 decades. They wanted to prove they were civilized now, that they had left their violent past behind. Dr. Hai walked up beside Day, carrying her datapad. She was the chief medical officer and spent most of her time studying alien biology. Her face looked tired today. "Another long shift?" Day asked. "Always," she smiled weakly. "But I love the work. Learning about so many different species, it never gets boring." Day nodded. He understood that feeling. Despite the challenges, being part of something bigger than Earth felt meaningful. They were bridge builders now, not warriors. The door slid open, and Captain Jin entered. His military uniform was crisp and proper, but his expression was dark. Jin had been arguing with coalition leadership for months now, and it showed in the lines on his face. "Commander, we need to talk," Jin said firmly. Day sighed. He knew what this was about. "Not the Vraks again, Jin. Please." "Yes. The Vraks again." Jin pulled up a holographic display. "Their ships have been spotted near 3 of our colonies in the past month. They're watching us, studying our defenses." "The coalition is aware," Day replied. "They're handling it through diplomatic channels." Jin's jaw tightened. "Diplomatic channels? The Vraks are a warrior species. They've conquered 12 systems in the last century. They respect strength, not words." Dr. Hai looked between them. "But we have treaties. The coalition won't allow open aggression, won't they?" Jin pulled up another image. "The Vraks just demanded we surrender 3 colony worlds. They claim the territories were theirs historically. The coalition is already pressuring us to compromise." Day felt a cold weight in his stomach. He had heard rumors about this, but seeing it confirmed was different. "The coalition will mediate fairly." "Will they?" Jin's voice rose slightly. "We're the newest members, Day. We have no real power in their councils. They see us as the violent primitives who are trying to reform. They don't respect us." "That's not true," Day said. But even he heard the uncertainty in his own voice. Jin stepped closer. "I'm requesting permission to increase our defensive capabilities. Just basic shields and weapon systems. Nothing aggressive." "You know I can't approve that," Day said quietly. "Coalition law is clear. We agreed to limit our military presence. Then we're sitting targets," Jin said bitterly. "We're showing good faith," Day countered. "That's how we build trust." Jin looked at him for a long moment, then shook his head. "I hope you're right, Commander. I really do." He turned and left the observation deck. Dr. Hai touched Day's shoulder gently. "He's just worried. We all are." "I know," Day said. "But we can't go back to what we were. Humanity made a choice 30 years ago. We chose peace. Over the next few weeks, the situation grew worse. The Vraks made more demands. They wanted mining rights, trade concessions, and access to human technology. The coalition held endless meetings, but nothing was resolved. Each session ended with more pressure on humanity to give ground. Governor Yun, the civilian leader of Artemis 7, called a town meeting. The large assembly hall was packed with worried families. Day stood on the stage with her, looking out at the sea of concerned faces. "I won't lie to you," Yoon said clearly. These are difficult times. But Earth has assured us that the coalition will protect us. We have treaties. We have agreements. The law is on our side. A man in the crowd stood up. What good is law if no one enforces it? The coalition has kept peace for 200 years, Yoon replied. They won't abandon that now. But Dae saw the doubt in people's eyes. He saw parents holding their children closer. He saw the fear that everyone tried to hide. That night, Dae couldn't sleep. He stood alone in his quarters, looking at old pictures from Earth, images of his family, his home, the blue planet that seemed so far away now. He had believed in this mission. He still wanted to believe. His communication terminal beeped. It was Captain Jin. Commander, you need to see this. Now. Dae rushed to the command center. Jin was there with his entire security team, all staring at the long-range sensors. What is it? Dae asked. Jin pointed at the display. Vrak's war fleet. 47 ships. Heading directly toward us. Dae's blood ran cold. That has to be a mistake. They wouldn't dare. The computers don't make mistakes, sir. Jin's voice was steady but hard. They'll be here in 18 hours. Dr. Hai burst into the command center, still in her sleep clothes. Is it true? Dae couldn't speak. He just stared at the display, watching the red markers move closer and closer to their position. What do we do? He whispered. Dae forced himself to think. Send emergency communications to Earth and the Coalition. Tell them we need immediate assistance. Already sent, Jin said. No response yet. They'll respond, Dae said, trying to sound confident. But as the hours passed, the responses that came back were not what anyone wanted to hear. Earth acknowledged the message and said they were working through diplomatic channels. The Coalition called for an emergency session to discuss the situation. Everything was process and procedure, but no one was sending help. Captain Jin pulled Dae aside. We need to evacuate. Now. Evacuate 15,000 people? Where? Dae asked. We have transport ships. We can save some of them. Dae looked around at the outpost, at the homes and schools and gardens that people had built here. This wasn't just a station. It was a community. Start evacuation procedures, he finally said. Families with children first. As alarms began to sound and people rushed to evacuation points, Dae sent one more message to Earth. His hands shook as he typed. We followed your rules. We trusted the system. Now our people are in danger. Please, send help. The response came from a coalition mediator. Not from Earth. Remain calm. The Vraks have been contacted. They assure us this is a training exercise. Do not take provocative action. Dae stared at the message. A training exercise. With a full war fleet. Heading straight for a civilian outpost, he looked at Captain Jin. The military officer's expression said everything. They were alone. The evacuation was chaos. Officer Su, the security chief, ran through the corridors, shouting orders. Parents grabbed their children and whatever they could carry. The elderly moved slower, helped by neighbors. Everyone knew there wasn't enough time. But they tried anyway. Governor Yoon stood at the main evacuation port, checking names on her data pad. Her calm voice cut through the panic. Stay in line. Everyone will get a chance. Children and elderly first. But there were only 5 transport ships. Each could hold 400 people. That meant 2,000 could escape. 13,000 would have to stay behind. Dae watched from the command center as the Vrak's fleet grew closer on the sensors. 16 hours now. Then 15. Time was running out. Like sand through fingers. Coalition response? He asked Jin. Still in session. They're debating the proper protocol for this situation. Jin's voice dripped with bitter anger. Dr. Hai was helping in the medical bay, treating people who had been injured in the rush to evacuate. A woman had broken her arm. A child had been trampled. Small injuries that felt enormous right now. In the residential sector, a young boy named Tae sat on his bed, holding his stuffed animal. He was 8 years old, and didn't fully understand what was happening. His mother was packing their belongings, tears streaming down her face. "Mama, why are we leaving?" Tay asked. "We're going on a trip, baby," she said, her voice breaking. But when they reached the evacuation port, the transport ships were full. A guard held up his hand. "I'm sorry, no more room." Tay's mother fell to her knees. "Please, he's just a child." The guard's eyes were wet with tears. "They're all children to someone. I'm sorry." Officer Sue saw this happening everywhere. Families separated. People begging for spots. The mathematics of survival were cruel and cold. She made a decision. "Commander Day, we need to make the final departure now," she said over the communication line. "If we wait longer, the Vraks might catch the transports too." Day closed his eyes. "Do it." The transport ships lifted off, carrying 2,000 souls to safety. On the observation decks, the 13,000 who remained watched them go. Some cried. Some were silent. Some prayed to gods from a dozen different religions. Governor Yun stood in the central plaza, addressing everyone who was left through the public address system. "I know you're scared. I am too. But we're going to get through this together. The coalition is working on a solution. Earth is negotiating. This will end peacefully." Even she didn't believe her own words anymore. Captain Jin approached Day in the command center. "We have basic defensive weapons. Not much, but something. Let me activate them." "The coalition forbids it," Day said automatically. "The coalition isn't here," Jin shouted, then quieter. "Please, Commander, let me protect these people." Day looked at the people on the monitors. Families huddled together. Teachers comforting students. Elderly couples holding hands. He thought about the rules, the treaties, the promises humanity had made. "Activate them," he finally said. Jin moved fast, bringing the outpost's limited weapons online. They had laser batteries designed to destroy small asteroids, not military ships. They had shields meant for radiation protection, not combat. It was like bringing a knife to a war. The Vraks fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 47 massive warships, each one bristling with weapons. They took up position around Artemis, 7 inches, a perfect formation. Day sent a communication. "This is Commander Day of Outpost Artemis 7. We are a civilian station. We are not a military target. Please state your intentions." The response came from Vraks Commander Thal, his harsh voice translated by the computer. "You are weak. Your weakness offends us. We will demonstrate what happens to the weak. We are protected by coalition law," Day said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We are a registered civilian outpost. Any attack is a violation of—" "Your laws mean nothing," Thal interrupted. "Only strength matters. You have none." Dr. He ran into the command center. "We need to evacuate the medical bay. They're going to attack." "There's nowhere to evacuate to," Jin said quietly. Day tried again. "We surrender. We are unarmed civilians. We surrender completely." "Surrender is for those worth conquering," Thal replied. "You are worth only one thing. A lesson." The first weapons fire lit up the void of space. The outpost shields held for 30 seconds. Then, they failed. The laser batteries managed to scratch the paint on 2 Vrak ships before being destroyed. Dr. He had her communication tablet with her. Without thinking, she started recording. The camera captured everything. The explosions, the screaming, the way the walls tore open and sucked people into the void. She sent the recording on a live broadcast to Earth, to the coalition, to everyone who would listen. In the central plaza, Governor Yun held Tay in her arms. The boy had been separated from his mother in the chaos. He was crying and asking for her. "It's okay," Yun whispered. Even as the ceiling above them began to crack, "It's going to be okay." Tay had picked a flower from the outpost's garden earlier. He still held it in his small hand. Dr. He's camera captured that moment. A child holding a flower while the world ended around him. The bombardment lasted 1 hour. Later, people would call it the Red Hour. The Vraks were thorough and methodical. They destroyed every section of the outpost. They left no survivors. 13,000 people died. Teachers and doctors, engineers and artists, parents and children, all of them guilty of nothing except being human and being in the wrong place. When it was over, the Vraks sent a broadcast to the Coalition and to Earth. This is the price of weakness. Humanity thought they could hide behind your laws and treaties. They were wrong. We tested their resolve. They had none. Let this be a lesson to all who forget that only the strong survive. On Earth, people watched Dr. High's broadcast. They saw everything. The attack. The death. The image of young Tay holding his flower. Frozen forever in that final moment. The Coalition held emergency sessions. They condemned the attack. They called it unfortunate. They suggested more dialogue. Earth's government sent formal protests through proper channels. They asked for justice through legal frameworks. They followed every rule and procedure. And then, after 72 hours, something changed. All human representatives withdrew from Coalition buildings. Every diplomat, every ambassador, every official. They left without explanation. Earth's communication channels went silent. No statements, no press releases, no responses to Coalition inquiries. The galaxy had never seen humanity go quiet before. Humans were always talking, always negotiating, always trying to explain themselves and prove their worth. But now, there was only silence. A silence that made the Coalition nervous. A silence that made the Vraks laugh. A silence that lasted exactly 72 hours. And when humanity spoke again, everything would be different. Deep beneath Earth's surface, in a facility that didn't exist on any official map, Director Kang sat at a conference table. Around him were 20 people who had been waiting for this moment, hoping it would never come. This was Shadow Command, a secret military organization that humanity had built the day after making first contact with aliens. While Earth's public face smiled and talked about peace, Shadow Command prepared for war. The Black Protocols are now active, Kang said quietly. We all knew this day might come. Admiral Sung stood and pulled up holographic displays. They showed ships, thousands of them, hidden in asteroid fields and behind moons throughout human space. Weapons that would make the Coalition scientists scream in horror. Soldiers who had trained in secret for 30 years. We have 200 stealth warships, Sung said. Each one, equipped with weapons technology, 50 years ahead of Coalition standards. We have 5 million combat-ready soldiers. We have orbital bombardment platforms, biological weapons, and experimental arms that we've never field-tested. Captain Jin Woo sat at the table, having been rescued from Artemis 7's ruins and brought here immediately. His face was burned, and his left arm was in a brace. He was one of only 7 survivors they had found. Why? Jin asked, his voice rough from screaming. Why did we have all this and not use it to protect them? Kang looked at him with sad eyes. Because we were trying to be better. We wanted to prove that humanity could choose peace. That we could earn our place in the galaxy through cooperation, not conquest. And instead, they saw us as prey. Jin said bitterly. Yes, Kang agreed. They mistook our mercy for weakness, our restraint for inability. They forgot what we were before we chose to be civilized. Agent G entered the room. She had been embedded in the Coalition's central government for 15 years, working as a cultural liaison. Her real job was intelligence gathering. The Coalition knows something is happening, G said. They're confused by Earth's silence. Some members are worried. But most think we're just sulking. They expect us to come back to the negotiating table with complaints and demands for justice. Justice, Sung said the word, like it was poison. They'll give us trials and debates. They'll write reports. And in the end, they'll tell us that the Vraks violated some regulations and will face economic sanctions. Kang stood and walked to the window. It showed a fabricated view of the sky, since they were so deep underground. But he wasn't looking at the fake view. He was looking inward, at a decision that had already been made. For 30 years, we buried our fangs. We smiled when they insulted us. We compromised when they demanded. We followed every rule they set, hoping to prove we had changed. He turned to face the room. They took our compliance as cowardice, our patience as fear, our peace as weakness. He pulled up the image of Tay holding his flower. The room went silent. This child will never grow up. 13,000 people will never see another sunrise. They died following our orders to be peaceful. They trusted us to protect them through diplomacy and law. Kang's voice became harder. We tried their way. It failed. Now we do it our way. He pressed a button, and the communication screen showed every major city on Earth. Billions of people watched as Kang addressed humanity for the first time. My name is Director Kang. Most of you don't know me. That was by design. For 30 years, I've led an organization that prepared for the worst while hoping for the best. Today, the worst has arrived. He showed them Artemis 7. The destruction. The bodies floating in space. The flower in Tay's hand. The galaxy thinks we're weak. They think 3 decades of peace erased millions of years of evolution. They think we forgot what we are. Kang's eyes were cold as ice. We didn't forget. We chose to be better. But they've made that choice impossible. On Earth, in coalition buildings on dozens of worlds, humans everywhere stopped what they were doing and listened. We're withdrawing completely from the Galactic Coalition. We're done with their laws and their treaties. We're done pretending that diplomacy works with predators. From this moment forward, humanity stands alone. Admiral Sung appeared on the screen next. To the Vrax Empire. You wanted to test humanity's resolve. You're about to get your answer. To the Coalition. You allowed this. Your silence was approval. Your neutrality was complicity. Remember that. Captain Jin spoke last, his burned face filling the screen. I was there. I watched them die. The Coalition did nothing. Earth's diplomats did nothing. All our peace and kindness bought us was a massacre. His voice dropped to a whisper. No more. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, Coalition members watched in confusion and growing concern. What was humanity planning? In Shadow Command, the preparations began immediately. Admiral Sung took command of the war fleet. 200 ships emerged from their hiding places, their stealth systems dropping away. They were massive and deadly, built with one purpose. Captain Jin was promoted to lead the 1st Strike Battalion. 10,000 soldiers, each one trained in combat techniques that the Coalition had banned as too brutal. They loaded onto transport ships, ready to deploy. Agent G sent her final report from inside the Coalition. 3 member species secretly supported the Vrax attack. They wanted to humble humanity. To put us in our place. They thought making us afraid would make us more compliant. Kang read the report and marked those 3 species' homeworlds on the strategic map. They'll learn the same lesson as the Vrax. Earth's factories, hidden beneath mountains and under oceans, roared to life. They began producing ammunition, ships, weapons. Everything humanity had pretended not to have for 3 decades. The Coalition sent messages demanding explanations, asking for meetings, requesting talks. Earth's response was 3 words. We're done talking. On the Vrax homeworld, Emperor Cool watched news reports about Earth's mysterious silence. He laughed when his advisors expressed concern. They're angry. So what? They're still weak. They still follow rules. They'll protest and complain, but they won't actually do anything. His military commander wasn't so sure. Sire, our intelligence suggests they may have hidden military capabilities. Kassin. Impossible. Cool waved his hand dismissively. We've monitored them for 30 years. They have nothing. But the silence. The silence is weakness, Cool shouted. They're hiding because they're afraid. As they should be. 7 days after the Artemis 7 massacre, the Vrax sensor stations detected something approaching their homeworld. Ships. Lots of them. They came out of dark space, dropping stealth systems when they were too close to stop. 200 human warships, arranged in a formation that the Vraks recognized from their own military doctrine. An attack formation, no warnings, no demands, no diplomatic communications, just arrival. Admiral Sung stood on the bridge of the flagship, looking at the Vraks' homeworld on his screen. Behind him stood Captain Jin and 5,000 other survivors from Artemis 7. They had all volunteered for this mission. Send them the image, Sung ordered. On every screen in Vrak's space, on every device and display, the image of Tay appeared. A child holding a flower. The last moment before he died. Then Admiral Sung spoke one sentence. Broadcast to the entire Vraks Empire. We remember now what we are. The attack began. The Vraks military responded exactly as Admiral Sung predicted. They launched their defensive fleet, confident in their superiority. They had conquered 12 systems. They had never lost a battle. That record lasted 15 minutes. Human weapons tore through Vrak shields like they weren't there. Missiles that thought for themselves, choosing targets, and adapting to defenses. Energy weapons that burned hotter than anything the Vraks had seen before. Railguns that fired projectiles at speeds that made them invisible until impact. But the humans didn't destroy the Vraks' ships. They disabled them, crippled their engines, destroyed their weapons, but left life support intact. Why aren't we finishing them? A young weapons officer asked. Admiral Sung watched the disabled Vraks vessels drift helplessly. Because dead men can't spread fear. Let them watch what comes next. Hey, a pilot leading the bomber squadrons, received her orders. Her target was the Vraks War Academy, where they trained their military leaders. The building was on the northern continent, away from civilian centers. As her squadron approached, Vraks' defense batteries opened fire, but human shields held easily. The bombers dropped their payload with surgical precision. The War Academy vanished in flames. Hay didn't feel joy. She didn't feel satisfaction. She felt empty and cold, like part of her humanity had died back at Artemis 7. She was just doing a job now. A necessary, ugly job. Target destroyed, she reported. No civilian casualties detected. That was important. Throughout the assault, humanity was careful. Precise. They struck military targets only. Command centers. Weapon factories. Shipyards. Fleet headquarters, but they left one thing at every target. A memorial stone with Tay's image and the names of everyone who died at Artemis 7. 13,000 names carved in black stone. Captain Jin led his soldiers onto the Vrak's surface. Their mission was to secure military installations and force surrenders. The Vrak soldiers who fought back were defeated quickly. Human training was simply better, but the humans took prisoners. They didn't execute. They didn't torture. They fought with brutal efficiency. But they followed rules, their own rules, created from hard lessons learned in humanity's bloody history. Jin cornered a group of Vrak's commanders in their bunker. They expected to die. Instead, Jin forced them to watch the recording of Artemis 7. All of it. Every minute of the red hour. You did this, Jin said, his voice cold and steady. You thought you were strong. You thought you were teaching us a lesson. Now you understand. Strength isn't about who you can kill. It's about who you choose not to kill. The Vrak's commanders saw the children dying. The elderly gasping for air. The flower falling from Tay's hand as the life left his eyes. One of them vomited. Another wept. A third sat in silence, his face pale. Dr. Hai had survived Artemis 7 by hiding in a sealed medical storage room. She had watched her colleagues die through the cameras. Now, she broadcast to the galaxy from aboard the human flagship. You wanted to see humanity's true nature? Here it is. Controlled, contained, unstoppable. We don't enjoy this. We don't celebrate it. We do what's necessary because you forced our hand. Her broadcast showed the human assault. But it also showed the care taken to avoid civilian casualties. The medical aid given to wounded Vrak soldiers. The food and water provided to captured crews. We're not monsters, Hai continued. We're people who remember what happens when monsters are allowed to run free. We're people who will do terrible things to prevent worse things. On the 6th day, Emperor Cool sat in his throne room, watching his empire collapse. 6 days. It had taken humanity 6 days to dismantle what the Vrax had built over centuries. His military was destroyed. His weapons factories were rubble. His fleet was either captured or crippled. And the humans had barely suffered any losses. How? He whispered. How did we not know? His advisor, one of the few remaining, answered quietly. Because they wanted us not to know. They hid their strength behind smiles and treaties. They played weak while building the tools to destroy us. Cool received a communication request from Admiral Sung. He almost refused it, but pride was a luxury he could no longer afford. Sung's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired but determined. We can end this now, Sung said simply. Surrender unconditionally. And the killing stops. What are your terms? Cool asked, his voice barely audible. Complete demilitarization. Your military disbanded. Your weapons destroyed. Reparations to the families of Artemis 7, and permanent human observers in your government to ensure you never threaten anyone again. That's enslaving us, Cool protested weakly. No, Sung replied. Slavery is what you intended for humanity. This is justice. You get to keep your lives, your culture, your freedom. You just lose the ability to harm others. Cool looked at his empty throne room. At the reports of his dying soldiers. At the footage of his cities under human control. He had no choice. I accept. But the coalition tried to intervene. 3 of their member species sent fleets to stop the human assault. They claimed to be peacekeepers. Enforcing coalition law, Admiral Sung met them at the edge of Vrax space. Turn back, he warned. This doesn't concern you. You're violating coalition law, their commander replied. We must intervene. You mean like you intervened when Artemis 7 was being destroyed? When our people were dying and begging for help? Sung's voice could have frozen stars. Your intervention is 30 days too late. The coalition ships moved forward anyway. The human fleet disabled them in minutes, leaving them drifting, but intact. Tell the coalition this. Sung broadcast to the captured ships. You had your chance to enforce your laws. You chose not to. So now, we enforce ours. If you don't like it, you should have protected us when it mattered. Agent G, still embedded in the coalition, reported back. 3 species supported the Vrax attack. They thought humbling humanity would make us easier to control. Director Kang marked their systems on his map. Send them a message. Trade embargo. Complete blockade. No human technology, no human resources, no human help. Let them see what happens when they conspire against us. Within days, those 3 species' economies began collapsing. They depended on human manufacturing, human medicine, human engineering. Without it, they struggled. They sent apologies. They offered compensation. Earth's response was simple. Apologies don't bring back the dead. The galaxy watched all of this and learned a terrible lesson. Humanity's 30 years of peace hadn't been weakness. It had been a choice. A choice they could revoke at any time. On the ruins of the Vrax War Academy, human engineers built something new. A memorial garden with 13,000 trees. Each tree had a name carved at its base. In the center stood a statue of Tay holding his flower. The plaque beneath read, "They died for peace. We fight so their deaths have meaning. Never again." Emperor Cool was forced to attend the memorial dedication. He laid a stone at Tay's statue, tears running down his face. Captain Jin stood beside him. Remember this feeling. Remember it forever. Because if you ever forget, we'll remind you. The Vrax Empire would spend the next 50 years as a human protectorate, rebuilding under watchful eyes. Their warrior culture would become one of peace, but not by choice, by necessity, because the alternative was extinction, and humanity had shown they were capable of delivering it. 6 months after the Red Hour, the galaxy looked very different. The Galactic Coalition still existed. But it was fractured and weak. 12 species had left completely, no longer trusting the organization that had failed to protect its members. 8 species requested protection from Earth instead of from the Coalition. Director Kang stood in what used to be the Coalition's Grand Assembly Hall. The room was half empty now. Many seats sat vacant, their former occupants having withdrawn or switched allegiance. He was here as humanity's representative, but he was no longer asking for permission or seeking approval. Ambassador Bo walked beside him. She had been a Shadow Command operative for 20 years, trained in both diplomacy and warfare. She was the perfect choice for this new era, where humanity needed both skills. The Council wants to negotiate, Bo said quietly. They're scared. They should be, Kang replied. They entered the chamber where the Coalition's leadership waited. Council Speaker Ven sat at the head of the table, his alien features tight with tension. Around him were representatives from the remaining member species. Director Kang, Ambassador Bo, welcome, Ven said, trying to maintain dignity. We're pleased you've agreed to return to discussions. We haven't returned, Bo said flatly. We're here to present our terms. The room went silent. For decades, the Coalition had dictated terms to humanity. The reversal made everyone uncomfortable. Kang pulled up a holographic document. These are the conditions under which humanity will consider rejoining the Coalition. They are not negotiable. Ven looked at the document and his face paled. This is... You're demanding complete restructuring of Coalition law. Yes, Kang said simply. Bo walked around the table, making eye contact with each representative. Condition 1. Complete military transparency. Every member species must disclose all military assets. No more secrets. No more hidden weapons. If we're going to trust each other, we need honesty. That's a violation of sovereign privacy, one representative protested. Privacy died at Artemis 7, Kang said coldly. When our people were screaming for help and your privacy prevented you from acting. This is the new reality, Bo continued. Condition 2. Mandatory intervention. If any member species is attacked, all members must respond immediately. No debates, no committees, no delays. The Coalition becomes a true defensive alliance, or it becomes nothing. That could drag us into conflicts, another representative argued. Like we were dragged into watching children die? Kang asked. You'll forgive us if we don't care about your convenience. Condition 3, Bo said. Human veto power on all military actions. Before the Coalition can approve any military operation, humanity must agree. We won't allow another massacre under the guise of teaching lessons. Ven shook his head. That gives you too much power. We earned it, Kang said quietly. 13,000 of our people paid the price for trusting you. That bought us the right to never trust blindly again. The final condition was the hardest. Artemis 7 becomes sacred ground. A permanent memorial. Any species that visits must acknowledge what happened there, and why. It becomes a reminder to the entire galaxy of the cost of inaction. Governor Yoon had been working on the memorial for months. She had survived by being on one of the evacuation ships, but the guilt haunted her every day. She couldn't save most of them, so she dedicated herself to remembering all of them. The new Artemis 7 was built around the ruins of the old one. The destroyed sections were preserved exactly as the wracks had left them. Visitors walked through corridors where walls were torn open to space, where bloodstains still marked the floors. In the central plaza, where 13,000 had died, there was now a garden. Each person who died had a flower planted in their memory. Tae's flower, preserved through technology, stood in the center under a protective dome. Yun stood at the memorial every day, greeting visitors and telling stories about the people who had lived here. She made sure they were remembered as people, not just as numbers or political symbols. Commander Dae visited her there. He had resigned his position after the massacre, feeling he had failed his people. But Yun asked him to help with the memorial, and he agreed. It was the least he could do. Do you think we went too far? Dae asked one day. Looking at the destroyed corridors they preserved, Yun was quiet for a long moment. I think we did what we had to do. The galaxy needed to learn that humanity has limits. That there are lines that can't be crossed. But the violence was controlled. Precise. We didn't become monsters, Day. We became wolves, protecting our pack. There's a difference. Back at the Coalition Assembly, the debate continued for days. Some species wanted to reject humanity's terms outright. Others were too afraid to say no. A few genuinely believed the terms were fair. In the end, it came down to a simple truth. Without humanity, the Coalition was weak. Humanity's technology was superior. Their military was unmatched. Their economy was thriving while others struggled. Council Speaker Ven cast the deciding vote. We accept your terms. Kang nodded but didn't smile. This wasn't a victory. It was just a necessary step toward preventing future tragedies. Humanity also established something new. The Accord. It was their own alliance. Separate from the Coalition. 8 species joined immediately, seeking protection under human strength. The rules were simple. Attack one, fight all. No exceptions. No debates. Immediate response. The Vrax Empire, now a protectorate, was the first to join. They had no choice. But Emperor Cool signed the documents with shaking hands. Will you ever forgive us? He asked Kang during the signing ceremony. Kang looked at him with cold eyes. No. We'll work with you. We'll help you rebuild. We'll even defend you if someone attacks. But forgive? Never. You don't get to murder children and receive forgiveness. Cool nodded, understanding. It was more than he deserved. 50 years passed. The galaxy settled into a new peace. One based on strength and clear consequences, rather than hopeful treaties and ignored violations. The Artemis Doctrine became the unofficial law of the galaxy. No species attacks another. Because humanity is watching. Shadow Command remained active. Unseen but known. A constant reminder that humanity's peace was a choice, not a limitation. Dr. Hai became the Coalition's chief medical advisor. She used her position to improve healthcare across the galaxy, saving millions of lives, but she never forgot the lives she couldn't save. Captain Jin retired from the military and became a teacher at the rebuilt War College on Earth. He taught young officers about the importance of strength tempered with restraint. Power without control is tyranny, he would say. But control without power is victimhood. We must have both. Admiral Sung continued to lead the human fleet. He was old now, his hair gray, but his eyes were still sharp. Young officers asked him about the Vrax War, expecting stories of glory. Instead, he told them about children holding flowers, about the cost of failure, about the weight of necessary violence. War is not glorious, he would say. It's ugly and sad, and should always be the last option. But when it becomes necessary, you must prosecute it with absolute commitment. Half measures only extend suffering. On the 50th anniversary of the Red Hour, representatives from every species in the galaxy gathered at Artemis 7. The memorial had grown over the decades. New gardens, new structures, new reminders. Director Kang was very old now, confined to a wheelchair, but he insisted on attending. Ambassador Bo pushed his chair through the memorial gardens. They stopped at Tay's flower. Do you think we went too far? Bo asked, echoing Day's question from decades before. Kang looked at the preserved flower, still beautiful after all these years. We went exactly far enough, he said quietly. The galaxy needed to learn that humanity doesn't want war. We tried their way first. We gave peace every possible chance, but when they forced our hand, we made sure the lesson was unmistakable. He looked up at the stars visible through the dome. For 50 years, there hasn't been a single war in this sector. No genocides. No massacres. Not because everyone suddenly became enlightened, but because everyone remembers what happens when you push humanity too far. Bo smiled sadly. Peace through strength. Peace through memory, Kang corrected. They remember what we were. What we can be again if necessary. And that memory keeps them honest. A group of young Vrax students approached, led by their teacher. They had been born long after the war, in the new, peaceful empire that humanity had helped build. One child approached Kang shyly. "Sir, are you Director Kang?" "I am. We learned about you in school. About what happened here." The child looked around at the memorial. "I'm sorry for what my ancestors did." Kang studied the child. This was someone who had never known war, who had grown up in a culture completely reshaped by humanity's intervention. "It's not your fault," Kang said gently. "But it's your responsibility to remember. To make sure it never happens again." "I will," the child promised. After they left, Bo looked at Kang. "Maybe we did it right after all." "Maybe," Kang said. "Or maybe we just got lucky that our worst impulses were aimed at preventing even worse outcomes." He reached out and gently touched the dome, protecting Tay's flower. "I hope you're at peace, little one. We made sure your death meant something. The galaxy is better now, because of what happened here. It's a terrible way to improve things, but it's what we had to work with." As the sun set on Artemis 7, the memorial lights came on, illuminating 13,000 names carved in stone. Visitors from across the galaxy read them quietly, each one a reminder. Humanity had proven something important. The most dangerous predator is the one that chooses not to hunt. The most fearsome warrior is the one who seeks peace first. But when forced to fight, when their children are threatened, when their patience is finally exhausted, then the galaxy sees what humans really are. Not monsters. Not angels. Just people who remember their history and refuse to repeat it. Who will do terrible things to prevent worse things. Who will burn down empires to protect a single child holding a flower. And the galaxy never forgot that lesson again.